Hi, welcome. My name's Dale McCluskey. On this video, as part of my series called Flipping the Script, I'm going to be focusing in on greater detail into the concept called bonking dogs. And here in this video, pictured here, Gary Wilkes, who's a proponent of this concept by way of the bonker, which seen here, it represents typically a rolled up towel to use to intercept a dog's state of mind as a dog is expressing control in the relationship. Here in this case, towards treats being held in Wilkes' hand. And again, I talk about this trigger point. I talk about certain situations I profiled as part of my Flipping the Script series, and one of those being Jeff Gelman, cell canine training, the Bonker incident, which triggered a absolute firestorm on social media by way of the startled reaction of the dog, and up to leading to online petitions, death threats, and all sorts of just outright hostility and anger over that situation. Again, I talk about the inability for those to be able to reconcile even certain reactions of dogs based on the relationship, based again on the fact that the process itself that both balanced dog trainers and forestry trainers advocate is superficial, which means that it lacks depth. It's all about getting dogs to respond when a relationship problem is already underway. Assuming that those responses represent perceptions of dogs are changing, which is inherently flawed, based on the absence of the two core ingredients I talk about by way of a process, influence and control. And again, this is why, again, when you get a dog on the leash, by way of bringing a dog under a level of control and influence, even during the walk, you'll see, challenge rise to the surface for a dog that understands intent as to how you're interacting, but for a dog in terms of has already gained a level of control in the relationship, versus off leash, responding for treats for something that they want. Dogs can look fantastic and do look fantastic in the training environment, doing a great sit down, come and stay. But again, what is very typical, okay, part of the package deal by way of this bribery based idea of things is a counterfeit picture. Dog owners getting a certificate for a job well done at the response level, only to discover that they're still dealing with a ongoing relationship problem, behavioral issues that have not gone away. I understand it happens all the time. Now here on this, by way of this concept, the bonker, I'm going to be talking about this because this, how balanced dog trainers incorporate this concept into their approach really illustrates the problems by way of a process that provides clarity both to the dog and to the owner, that reconciles both the role of the dog owner as well as the role of influence. Again, when I talk about the solution and by way of a process, I'm referencing a intentional interaction-based method that speaks the right language, okay, in terms of intent, in terms of changing perceptions of dogs, approaching training for what it truly represents, a intervention. Again, this is why, again, almost every video in my series, I mentioned the parenting example to help people understand the problems associated with this idea of things, highlighting the social aspect of the relationship, of the role, just like the role of the parent. And if you were to, advocate by way of superficially generating responses in the middle of a relationship problem with a selfish child, without considering the parenting style and play, the role of the parent in terms of advocating change, you should expect a disconnected result, a disconnected picture, some great responses by way of a selfish child bribing them to pick up their toys. But the question you have to ask is that really all that it's about? Can you just trust appearances that way? Well, the answer to that is absolutely not. Now here, again, we talk about the Bonker concept. Again, even the issue about a startle reaction. I encourage you to watch the Jeff Gellman video I did by way of influence coming by way of a third party. Okay, so I talk about clarity of certain themes. I mentioned those themes by way of doing a breakdown of that incident to help people understand that in terms of it making sense to the dog, in terms of the proactive role, which I'll mention here, of influence. And one of the big themes is about being dialed into the relationship the right way, and therefore dialed into a dog's state of mind as control is being expressed, okay, through a dog's state of mind. This is one of the themes that's totally absent by way of balanced dog trainers, with being dialed in that way to the relationship. And so this causes a major problem because, as you're going to see here, okay, it's the going from 0 to 100 in like 1 second, where not being dialed into the reason why the dog and owner are there in the first place, and the dog's level of stinking thinking, okay, where a look just isn't a look, okay, beginning to be proactive in terms of intercepting a dog's state of mind in certain moments, and therefore clarity by way of a dog being agreeable by way of the proactive role of influence. And here, what you're going to see, I'm going to back this up, is you're going to see a complete lack of being dialed in that way, and then suddenly kind of cherry picking a moment in which control is already manifesting at a higher level, and then at that moment, then jumping in. And we'll talk about that. I'll line this up with the parenting example. We're going to back this up. Again, using this video as a frame of reference for education purposes, and talking through some of the various themes here that are missing from balanced dog training. But again, the bonker is a great illustration of the confusion. So here, I mean, you get all the tools here, and this is the thing about balanced dog training. You'll see the treats are out, the bonker is on the other side of Wilkes here on the floor, the remote collar's on. Okay, I mean, you got it all. And this is the thing about, I talk about balanced dog trainers playing both sides, okay, of the ideological fence by way of this idea that trains a learning-based exercise. So, but again, I talk about the compromised position balanced dog trainers are in, why they're losing tools, okay, why the force-free movement has the ideological high ground based on what this idea represents. And again, I talk through all of it to help people understand, what's going on in the dog training world, but in terms of, the confusion. And so again, we talk about, taking a process, starting off at what it represents, a intentional interaction-based method, and then going down further away from that type of spectrum. And the further down that line you go through balanced dog training towards force-free, the wider that door opens up to perception of dogs not changing. Okay, but based again on those two core ingredients I talk about, influence and control, not being reconciled, not coming in by way of a interaction-based method. So understand that this process itself does not reconcile influence its role the right way. It does not engage the dog's state of mind. That's why I talk about intercepting as a dog expressing control versus redirecting or changing focus. Okay, understand this is one of the inherent flaws in the dog training world by way of this very popular idea is confusion over the role of influence.
Oh, you are so good. God, where did you get him?
So this whole thing about, you're so good, okay, right away, this whole thing about, I talk about a foundation, okay, I talk about like when I'm walking into a situation involving a relationship problem, okay, I'm not engaging this way, okay, understand this is about emotion, this is about starting to generate, okay, those two core ingredients, getting those going by way of control and influence. And so understand that through, again, by way of relationship and how the dog owner has connected through emotion, that becomes a source of empowerment to a dog. This is why dogs typically are attached to the owner in a possessive way. And so again, when you step in, you want to make sure you're kind of parenting foundation is set in place. Okay, this is why I won't go up and start to pet on the dog and start to engage that way, because there has to be a certain level of a serious undertone. It doesn't mean that you're upset or angry. Okay, it's about starting to move in the direction by way of not just leadership, but starting to bring a dog under a level of intentional control, to start to speak the right language by way of a method. So here, interesting, you see balanced dog trainers, even the posture itself speaks volumes. He's kneeled down, he's sitting down with his legs crossed, which typically represents a point of emotional contact with the dog through association. Okay, so what it does is it gives the dog a sense of, comfort, fulfillment the wrong way. Okay, you should be up on your feet. Okay, you should be starting to engage the right way to start to bring those two core ingredients into play. And so here right away, he's talking, he's engaging, and so this whole thing, and this really speaks volumes as to not being dialed into a relationship problem, to say everything's really okay. And this is the problem in the dog training world, this whole thing with not understanding, where you're at, how you're currently perceived. But understand that the truth is only revealed through those core ingredients, just like, again, the parenting example. The moment that the parent, puts a demand onto a child, pick up your toys because you're the parent, versus pick up your toys and here's $100. Understand the entire dog training world is based on here's $100, without considering why that would be a problem at that moment in the relationship when the the relationship is already sideways. And so here, when we talk about cherry picking moments, which we're going to talk about in a moment, in terms of the parenting example once again.
He's gorgeous.
The rescue.
Huh? Rescue?
Yeah, I think he was from a backyard breeder.
Well, I don't know what he was from, but look at this. Look at these legs. Those core.
Just again, engaging, talking. Now, here again, Wilkes should be up on his feet, okay? And intentional control should be coming through the leash, okay, right away. Okay, starting to get that baseline going. Understand that none of that's happening here. Okay, this is a point of connection. Just like I talk about the moment, okay, a parent makes contact with a child, it begins. So I talk about even engaging a relationship problem by way of expressing intentional control and influence. It matters. And more so, okay, when you're attempting to reverse a relationship problem. Okay, it's got to be very intentional. The integrity of that process has to come together the right way.
Horse pictures where his musculature is just gorgeous.
So I got the treats out. Now, understand that, you want to stay away from using treats, period. Okay, if you want to give your dog a treat, just give your dog a treat. But this whole idea, and you see these trainers doing this with, using treats to generate a response. But here in this situation here, Gary Wilkes is basically setting this dog up, okay, to express a moment, right, that he can apply the bonker, okay. But this is kind of really an unfair moment in a lot of ways, because right here the whole foundation's wrong. Okay, it's kind of like entrapment. Okay, in a way, it's like a police officer, and again I can say this because my background is I'm retired police, but sitting down at the bottom of a hill, waiting for vehicles to roll down, to basically write some tickets. Okay. Now, when I was a police officer, I was very aware of of discretion, right? And my whole belief in terms of all that was that about changing behavior. So I definitely wrote a lot more warnings than I did tickets. But the whole thing here, again, I talk about entrapment. This whole thing of setting this up, the fairness of, or making the clarity part of the theme here, with being up on his feet, having this dog under level of intentional control, speaking the right language, having your parenting style set in place at the beginning. I mean, that matters. So here, this whole thing with kind of setting up a moment where he's going to kind of cherry pick a moment, and going back to the parenting example, which is how you want to see balanced dog training. The example of balanced dog training based on this scenario, what's happening here is balanced dog training represents not being dialed into a relationship problem by way of a selfish child, all the information coming in terms of, how the child's responding by way of certain environments, their grades at school, how they're interacting with teachers, all the with you as a parent, all the different things that factor into coming to that point in the relationship. Say, hey, I'm dealing with a relationship problem. I understand balanced dog training is not based on that in terms of connecting dots that way. What balanced dog training represents is the parent who waits until the selfish child is going into the toy aisle, starting to pull the toys down on the heads of the other kids, before at that moment jumping in and saying, oh, now there's a problem, and now I'm going to jump in and I'm going to intercept, which again causes, lack of clarity, more issues. You talk about getting redirected on, okay, more conflict, because you're going in at that, you're not dialed in, you're going in at that time where things are the worst, versus, again, what this system of training represents, being dialed into the reality of the situation based on the information, based on being dialed into the relationship. And it's a parent who, the moment that they wake up in the morning and before they even get their shower, their feet hit the floor, you're in tune to the fact that you're dealing with a relationship problem. And so having that, being engaged, being dialed in, being in the child's airspace consistently at all points. This is where I talk about the interaction-based method, where you're in the dog's airspace, okay, by way of those core ingredients. But it's like having that conversation before the child even goes to the store in terms of certain expectations. So understand, balanced dog trainers are not dialed into the relationship that way, not dialed into the dog's state of mind that way. And you can see it through all sorts of videos on social media. They'll be standing there, and the Miracle Canine videos I put out a great example of that, with the dog's heads pivoting, investing, and the trainer admitting that they're not concerned about that, because they're so focused on the tools. Okay, they're so focused. And this is why you ever wonder why many balanced dog trainers can't get these devices off these dogs, because the device itself isn't aligning to the relationship, to those core ingredients the right way. Okay, so therefore those tools become a crutch. That's why I call device awareness. So you take that tool off, the dog is like, you feel like you're back to square one, because you don't have control, or you're not perceived the right way in the relationship to begin with. So tools are an extension of the individual. They're an extension of the relationship.
No, he's not. No.
So there's the moment. There's the kind of setup moment right there. Talk about kind of entrapment. Okay, it's like at that moment to say, hey, but the issue here is the fact that when you're assessing, in terms of an express state. Now understand, this is about being dialed into the relationship, where you start to really get the right foundation. You'll see where a look just isn't a look. Okay, and therefore you're intercepting. How you want to see that through the parent example? It's knowing the child is selfish, and you're on it. Right before, it's like, hey, just one look from a parent. It's like, don't even think about it. Like, we're in the middle of a relationship problem. So understand that it's a temporary process as well. I talk about a intentional interaction-based methodology. You watch my videos, it will have the appearance of being somewhat tyrannical, right? Based again on the current state of the relationship. And the structure has to come together. That's no different than we're dealing with a very selfish child. Guess what? They can't go over to their friend's house to play. You have to, line things up so that you're engaged as a parent, so that you can advocate. Okay, so understand that it's all of that. So more freedom comes as change happens. More freedom comes, devices go away, the crate can go away. All those things can start to fade out of the picture as you fade in.
Okay, what was he doing? He was pushing my hand. I've just created a contingency. Push my hand, get bumped. Your choice, free ride, take a ride on the reading.
Take a ride on the reading. It's the same thing, but here, not dialed in at all. I mean, it's this whole 0 to 100, but not dialed into. The zero should start at the fact of, of gathering the right information by way of dealing with the relationship problem, and then moving up from there, in terms of, a process. So, my encouragement, again, anyone watching, what's going on in the dog training world, understand that the bonker, has become a trigger point, which makes sense when you really think about the confusion that's happening. I talk about, the role of influence. Because again, balanced dog trainers, they advocate, they're aligned with the very same idea of things as force free. It's just two sides of the same coin. And so again, my encouragement is really consider again all the confusion happening. The bonker is really a great illustration of the themes I talk about that are missing when it comes to balanced dog training. The confusion, you look at the Jeff Gelman situation, the controversy that happened from the reaction of the dog, based again on a lack of clarity. So again, check out my website. Lots of great information. I talk about not just the problem, but the solution by way of a intentional interaction-based method. Thanks for watching.